Discover the prophet of incredible miracles, revealed truths of faith and divine transformation. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the widow of one of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, desperate and weary. Her husband, a faithful servant in the house of the Lord, had passed from this life, leaving her alone with 2 sons and a debt that threatened to consume them. Society held little mercy for widows. The burden of her grief was compounded by the fear that her children would soon be taken to pay for the debts that loomed over her like shadows. As she approached Elisha, her heart trembled with the weight of what lay ahead. The stories of miracles she had heard from others stirred a flicker of hope within her. "What shall I do for you?" he inquired, his voice a soothing balm amid her turmoil. With vulnerability, she replied, "Your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil." A spark ignited within Elisha's gaze, and he spoke with conviction, instructing her to gather empty vessels from her neighbors. The request was a test of faith, a faith that called upon her community to join her in the unfolding miracle. The widow, though frightened, was obedient. She set out to collect the vessels, each one becoming a vessel of hope, an emblem of trust in the almighty provision of God. Upon returning home, the widow looked at her single jar of oil, her last fragment of earthly possession. She poured, seemingly insignificant at first, but to her astonishment, the oil began to flow. It was not a gentle trickle, but a miracle, pouring forth, filling each container one by one until every jar brimmed. The joyous laughter of her sons filled the air as they hurried to bring her more jars, eyes aglow with wonder. When the last jar filled, the flow ceased. The miraculous provision paused, heaviness lifting as she gazed at the multitude of filled vessels around her. In that moment, disbelief turned to faith. Her heart swelled with gratitude as she realized God had indeed provided for her. Yet a new weight settled upon her. Would this be sufficient to pay her debts and secure her family's future? Overwhelmed with a divine revelation, she rushed back to Elisha, sharing the astonishing news. The story had not merely been about filling jars, but signified God's unwavering faithfulness, a testament of His love in times of distress. Elisha's guidance to sell the oil, pay her debts, and live on the remainder breathed life into her future. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications, as these biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey. I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now, let's continue with what the Lord did next. Yet, as she stood on the precipice of a new beginning, uncertainty clung to her heart. Would her sons truly be safe? What awaited them in their journey of divine transformation? This miracle, a visible sign of God's power, now challenged her to place her full trust in the sovereignty of God's plan. The path ahead was full of promise, but also mystery. The unfolding of God's work was just beginning. And it came to pass after this miraculous provision that the widow, now filled with both relief and trepidation, set forth to fulfill the instructions given to her by Elisha. With a heart steadfast in faith, she ventured into the marketplace, her sons beside her, each carrying a vessel brimming with oil. "Look upon this bounty," she declared to the people, "for the Lord of hosts has shown mercy upon me, and has filled these vessels as He did for the widow of old." Her voice rose above the murmurs of the crowd, stirring curiosity and admiration. Some came close, peering in disbelief at the jars, while others pointed and whispered among themselves. As she sold the oil, joy poured forth from her heart, and she began to note the faces of her neighbors, some sympathetic, while others bore hearts burdened by their own needs. She called each one, sharing her testimony of faith. Come, buy this oil that God has provided, for he did not abandon me in my sorrow, but has opened the gates of heaven to bless the work of my hands." With each transaction, the widow not only paid her debts, but began to gather a small reserve, a blessing meant to sustain her family through a future once filled with despair. The oil flowed, and alongside it, her hope blossomed like spring flowers after the rain. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of the land, a shadow stirred. A governor in the king's court, faced with the threat of impending famine, sent forth messengers across the region. "Take inventory of your stores, prepare yourselves." His voice echoed against the stone walls as he wrestled with the uncertainty that loomed on the horizon. Elisha, too, sensed the stirring winds of change. Inquiring of the Lord, he was given insight, a vision of what was yet to come. "The widow's return to fullness shall be but a precursor of the famine that is set to test the faith of my people," he declared to the prophets gathered around him. And in that instant, Elisha knew the call would come upon him to act once more. He turned to those near him and spoke, "Prepare for action, for the Lord has spoken, and we must be ready to serve him in his works." Just then, one of the sons of the widow rushed in, breathless and wide-eyed. "Father," he exclaimed, "our neighbors talk of a coming drought. They say, 'The land will yield no crops.' Shall we not gather and pray for the mercy of God?" Elisha's heart quickened. God's plans were unfurling like the colors of dawn breaking into a darkened world. "Indeed, go, gather all the faithful to call upon the Lord, for the days ahead shall prove whether our faith will hold firm against the trials to come." As the widow returned home, freshly renewed in spirit, she began to share her tale of provision and gratitude. The gathered neighbors listened intently, their eyes shimmering with hope amidst the foreboding predictions. "Trust in the Lord, for he who has fulfilled my needs will surely provide for us all," she proclaimed, her faith infectious. But what none of them yet understood was the greater purpose behind their trials and God's sovereign plan unfolding beneath the surface. Though the drought loomed like a cloud over the horizon, it was merely the beginning of something that would reveal the depths of their faith. In the hearts of those who dared to believe, a divine whisper echoed. The testing of their trust in God was preparing them for more than survival. It was leading them toward redemption. And thus began the next chapter in their journey of incredible miracles. "And it came to pass in those days that the famine the governor feared began to draw near, and the hearts of the people trembled within them like leaves in a storm. As the sun passed over the land, casting long shadows upon the earth, Elisha rose early each day, seeking the countenance of the Lord. The widow, mindful of the oil that had sustained her, gathered her sons and others who had experienced the miracle of provision. 'Come together, brethren,' she implored them. 'Let us recount the wondrous deeds of the Lord. For he has not dealt with us according to our iniquities, but has poured his mercy upon us.' With each meeting, their faith strengthened as they shared their stories. Thus, a fellowship of hope was born amid uncertainty. Among those hearing the widow's words was a farmer, weary from toil, who had heard rumors of the drought. 'Elisha,' he called, 'what shall we do now that the heavens are silent? When our fields yield nothing, how are we to survive?' Elisha turned to him, eyes filled with resolve. 'Hear me, O man of faith. The Lord has not abandoned us. Even in a season of drought, remember the raiment of the widow. For though the land may seem barren, our God is able to bring forth life where none appears to dwell.' Not far from this gathering, a great thirst spread across the land. As the people labored, the sun beat down, and each day that passed deepened their uncertainty. Within their hearts, the question arose, will the Lord uphold his promise? Will he sustain us? As evening fell one day, Elisha convened a gathering at the altar, proclaiming, 'Let us bring our fears and our pleas before the Lord. Lord, for in the depths of our need shall his glory be unveiled.'
And so they gathered, united in faith, each disciple clinging to the hope that God would answer their cries. They prayed fervently, their voices rising like incense before the throne of the Most High. The widow led them, her voice unwavering, declaring remembrance of the oil that had filled her vessels. Suddenly, in the stillness of their prayers, a fresh wind blew across the gathering, and the heavens seemed to resonate with a powerful presence. "Behold, my children," came the voice of the Lord, "I have heard your cries. The pulse of the land shall yet respond to my will. For I will bring forth rain upon the dry ground, and in the shadow of the drought my miracles will abound." A cry of joy erupted among those assembled, as hope ignited once more. The widow raised her hands in worship, her heart overflowing with gratitude. "Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord. I will proclaim your glory among the nations." Yet, unbeknownst to them all, the challenges ahead were but a stepping stone in a divine tapestry, intricately woven together by the hand of God. The trials they endured were not to be merely tests, but would unlock the door to deeper revelations of His mercy and grace. Elisha, moved by the Spirit, spoke once more. "Know this, beloved, the Lord is preparing us not only for sustenance, but for a revelation that shall ripple through generations. The time draws near for His promises to manifest in ways we have not yet dared to imagine." The gathering left that night with hearts aflame, little knowing how their faith would be the crucible in which a greater miracle would unfold. For the sovereign plan of God was now set in motion, poised to reveal not only their own redemption, but the restoration of His covenant people. And thus an uncanny stillness fell over the city, as they awaited the rain, each soul yearning for the promise yet hidden, a divine mystery lingering just beyond their understanding. As dawn broke, the land remained shrouded in an oppressive silence, the dusty paths winding like veins through the desolation. But within the hearts of the faithful, a flicker of divine promise ignited, for Elisha's words lingered like fragrant incense. They had tasted the goodness of the Lord, and hope took root deep in their souls, despite the outward barrenness. The widow, encouraged by the voices of her brethren, rose early to seek Elisha once more. "Let us go forth into the streets," she urged, "that we may share the message of hope. For the Lord has declared His intentions, and we must proclaim it." She gathered her sons, and together they ventured outward, their steps quickened by faith. Meanwhile, amidst the fear and confusion, a nobleman approached Elisha with distress etched across his brow. "Man of God," he began, urgency thick in his voice, "the people are losing heart. As the drought stretches forth, despair threatens to overtake them. How shall we find sustenance?" His voice cracked under the weight of uncertainty. Elisha fixed his gaze upon the nobleman. "Take heart, for the Lord shall provide. Gather the people, and let them bring forth all that they have, whether grain or oil. In the hands of God little becomes much. Prepare ye the bowls, for the Lord's blessing is at hand." The nobleman hurried to fulfill the prophet's command, and soon the streets were echoing with the murmurs of eager anticipation. One by one the people came, each bringing what little they possessed: small measures of flour, a dollop of oil, desperate remnants that reflected their plight. Yet, as they gathered, the spirit of camaraderie surged amongst them. In the midst of this assembly, Elisha called for silence and lifted his face to heaven. "O Lord of hosts, in this hour of need we beseech thee. Turn thy graciousness toward us, that we may witness thy hand at work." He stepped forward and prayed with fervor, beseeching the skies to open. As the words of his prayer drifted into the heavens, a collective breath was held, and suddenly the heavens responded. A distant rumble, like the low growl of an awakening beast, resonated through the air. Dust devils swirled as clouds began to dance upon the horizon, dark and brooding, forming a tapestry of expectation above the gathered multitude. The nobleman, eyes wide, felt the atmosphere change, tinged with an electric anticipation. "It is coming!" he exclaimed, and an echo of hope spread like wildfire through the crowd. Children looked upward, faces aglow with wonder, as mothers clung tightly to their little ones, tears of longing mingling with the dust of the ground. Then, as Elisha raised his hands once more, a mighty wind blew across the valley, carrying with it the scent of rain, a fragrant promise against the parched earth. The first drops fell, tentative and sweet, heralding the deluge that was to follow. The people erupted in praise, voices lifted in harmony, proclaiming the faithfulness of God. "He is our provider," they shouted, and with each drop that fell, their hearts danced with the knowledge that their God had not forgotten them. Yet, amid their joy, a shadow looms over the horizon, a revelation yet to unfold. For as they collected the blessings of rain, a greater test awaited, one that would amplify their faith and reveal the depths of their hearts in profound ways. Elisha, sensing the weight of what lay ahead, spoke with a voice steadfast. "Fear not, for these raindrops signal not only provision, but the beginning of a journey, a path through the wilderness which will reveal the hidden truths of God's sovereignty. Let this rainfall remind you that we are but vessels of His purpose, and great are the depths yet to be charted." Thus, the rain fell as a symbol of God's faithfulness, yet the echoes of dread still murmured within. Little did the people know, their greatest trials were yet unwritten, and in the unfolding of these challenges, God's tremendous plan would be revealed in ways they could scarcely imagine, bridging the chasm of despair to the shores of divine grace. When the rain began to pour and the earth drank deeply, the people danced in jubilation, yet a murmur of concern lingered within their hearts. Each droplet of mercy carried the weight of coming trials, a divine whisper calling them deeper into understanding. Elisha watched the crowd, their faces alight with hope, and he sensed the tension of the moment. "Gather, O people of God, the Lord has opened the heavens, but heed my words. This is but the beginning, for every blessing is a path to greater revelation." With renewed fervor, the widow and her sons approached him, her heart still beating fast from the joy of the rain. "Great prophet," she implored, "what must we do to prepare for what lies ahead? We have been nourished, yet I fear what may come from this abundance." Elisha regarded her with compassion, then spoke firmly. "You, woman of faith, are to gather more than just grains and oil. Call upon your neighbors and share your abundance, for the Lord will test not only your resources, but your hearts. He desires unity as well as sustenance. Through giving, prepare to receive in ways unimagined." Thus, the widow raced back to her community and called out, "In gratitude, let us share, for what was emptied may be filled anew. Join us, and let love pour forth with the rain." Yet, as the people fortified their spirits with communal feasts, whispers of doubt woven through the fabric of their joy. "What if this rain ceases too soon?" they questioned each other in hushed tones. "What of tomorrow? What if we gather but still lack?" In the shadow of their fears, Elisha knelt once more in prayer, his heart filled with the burden of his people. "O Lord, hear our cry. Strengthen their faith, that they may see beyond the present and trust in you, the everlasting provider." As his words ascended, there came a rumble through the heavens. The clouds turned darker still, but instead of dread, there was promise. Voices from the crowd, stitched together in a desire for hope, began to rise in a song of faith. They sang hymns of trust, recounting the great deeds the Lord had performed in ages past, how he had parted the sea, provided manna in the wilderness, and led them through the fire. And it was then, amidst their praise, that the full weight of Elisha's prophecy began to unfold. The ground trembled gently underfoot, as birds filled the air and flitted about in a whirlwind of anticipation. A throng of travelers appeared on the horizon, their forms silhouetted against the sky. "Who are they?" a man cried, pointing. "Have more come to seek refuge?" Elisha rose, fixing his gaze upon the newcomers. "Behold, the hand of God is
At work, these travelers carry not just their needs, but the seeds of a greater story. A divine encounter awaits. As they approached, an elderly man stepped forward, bearing upon his shoulders an offering, a basket filled with fresh bread and fish. "We were drawn to this place," he spoke, "for we heard of great miracles. Surely the God of Israel still works wonders." The people gasped. This unexpected gift was a symbol, the bread of life being offered, just as the rains provided physical sustenance. But Elisha understood deeper meanings, sensing that this was a gathering of hopes greater than physical need. It was the tug of divine destiny weaving through the hearts of all present. "Prepare yourselves," Elisha called to the crowd, his voice ringing with authority. "For the Lord is drawing us into a partnership beyond our understanding to witness his miraculous hand. The time of transformation is here, and as you give and receive, let your hearts be forged in faith, for greater miracles shall unfold here, where your trust in him will reveal not only provision, but the depths of his covenant love." Yet still the question lingered heavy upon their souls. What trials might come, as faith gave birth to deeper transformations? Little did they know, from this moment, the very fabric of their lives would be entwined with the threads of God's larger plan, implying that what lay ahead would challenge them as never before. A divine mystery awaited, the revelation of which would challenge their very understanding of faith. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue upon the gathering, Elisha's heart resonated with anticipation. The crowd buzzed with whispered hopes and expectations, and he perceived the stirring of the Spirit among them. "Stand firm, faithful ones," he urged, gesturing toward the heavens. "The Lord is revealing his wonders, and your hearts must be open to his leading." At that moment, a woman from the crowd, her face etched with worry, stepped forward. "Prophet," she cried, "my son lies sick at home. The physicians are unable to heal him. Is there no remedy in this land?" Elisha turned to her, his gaze radiant with compassion. "Fear not, for the Lord's compassion overflows. Lead me to your son, and let us see the might of our God." The path to her home was fraught with shadows of doubt in her mind. "What if he dies before we arrive?" she spoke softly, despair creeping into her words. Elisha, sensing her distress, replied with firm reassurance. "Do not let your heart tremble. Trust in the Lord. He is the lifter of heads and the healer of hearts." Arriving at the widow's house, they found the boy laid upon a mat, pale and breathless. Elisha knelt by his side, his spirit lifted in prayer. "O Lord of hosts, breathe life into this child," he implored, his voice filled with urgency. In the quiet of the room, a presence enveloped them, a warmth like the sun breaking through. Through winter's chill, Elisha placed his hands upon the boy, invoking the name of the Lord, and as he did, a gentle light filled the space, illuminating the shadows of despair. Moments passed like hours, the widow watching intently, her heart a storm of faith and fear. Then a sound broke through. Gasping breaths filled the air. The boy's eyelids fluttered open, revealing a spark of life. "Mother!" he exclaimed, confusion giving way to joy.
The widow fell to her knees, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Elisha, you are indeed a man of God. Through you the Lord has saved my son." But Elisha, catching the weight of this miracle, narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. "O woman of faith," he said, "this miracle is but the first thread in a tapestry of God's sovereign plan. Tell of this miracle, that others may believe and draw closer to the Lord." As stories of the miraculous spread through the village, a sense of anticipation surged among the people. But among them lurked unsettling questions. "How long will these miracles last?" some murmured. "What trials await us now?" Elisha sensed the unrest, the undercurrents of doubt rising amidst the tide of joy. "Beloved," he called, gathering the crowd once more, "remember the deeds of the Lord. In every season his love prevails. The rain has come, the boy has risen, and yet more awaits. Stay steadfast, your faith will forge a path through every challenge." In that moment, the sky rumbled again, not with discord, but with a beckoning promise. The clouds, swollen with more than just moisture, loomed grimly overhead, hinting at trials yet to unfold. The people stood in silence, the weight of God's sovereign purpose settling upon them. A realization dawned that in the midst of abundant provision, deeper sanctification awaited. Then, in the distance, came another sound, a rustle, like whispers of destiny carried on the wind. Elisha's eyes widened with understanding as he gazed toward the horizon. "See," he declared, "God's hand is leading us still. At the edge of this journey lies an even greater unfolding mystery. For he is gathering a people not only for abundance, but for transformation into his image." The crowd exchanged uneasy glances, yet within them flickered a flame of hope, ignited by the truths they had witnessed. The mysteries of God were deepening before their eyes, and the enigmatic path ahead loomed larger, filled with unknowns and profound revelations. What trials might test their hearts anew? What miraculous signs would point them back to faith? As they stood on the precipice of God's promise, they sensed that, in every answered hope, deeper divine truths were poised to be revealed. And so they remained, gazing toward the unfolding horizon, aware that the divine mystery was about to challenge all they had ever known. Elisha turned toward the crowd, his heart heavy with the weight of the divine revelations about to unfold. "Brothers and sisters," he proclaimed, "the Lord has great plans for us, plans to prosper and not to harm us, plans to give us hope and a future." The words flowed like a soothing balm over the anxious hearts present. Yet, as Elisha spoke, a tumultuous wind began to swirl around them, carrying with it a sense of urgency that stirred the souls of those gathered. A young man boldly stepped forward from the throng, his voice trembling yet resolute. "Prophet, what shall we do when trials come? Shall we flee, or shall we stand firm in the face of adversity?" Elisha's gaze sharpened, the question cutting through the tension. "In the day of trial, we shall indeed stand firm. As it is written in Isaiah, 'When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you.' Your faith is the anchor, and faith must be tested if it is to be refined. Gather your strength, for the refining fire approaches." A murmur rippled through the crowd as they processed the weight of his statement. From behind them, the widow of Zarephath, the one whom Elisha had once saved during the famine, came forth, her eyes glistening with recollection. "The prophet truly speaks truth. His words are life, for in my darkest hour, he was the one who provided for me. His God is a faithful God." Elisha nodded, affirming her testimony with a lift of his hands, as if inviting the heavens to witness their declarations. Indeed, throughout every season, the storms and the calm, remember the testimonies. They are the stones of remembrance that shall guide you through the wilderness. Suddenly, dark clouds loomed larger, and thunder rumbled ominously overhead, echoing the growing unrest within the hearts of the people. "What is this storm brewing?" some whispered fearfully. "The Lord is coming," Elisha declared, his spirit rising in confidence. "For you see, his voice commands the winds and the waves. Do not fear the tempest, for it is a reminder of his sovereignty. The Lord is raising up a generation to embrace trials, that in them they may find the strength to rise." As the wind picked up, a great hush fell over the crowd. Eyes widened toward the coming storm, and Elisha felt the burden of prophetic weight descend upon him once more. In the trials that approach, know this: God is testing your faith to produce perseverance. Let your roots go deep into His love, for the harvest that is coming is immeasurable. Then, just as suddenly, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and a voice like thunder rumbled through the air. "Elisha, my faithful servant," it called. The earth trembled with reverence, and every person there sensed a divine encounter unfurling before them. "Elisha," the voice continued with power, "tell my people, the days of miracles are not yet concluded. For as the waters cover the sea, so shall my glory be revealed through you." Elisha watched, awestruck, as a celestial light washed over the gathering, illuminating each face.
Grace. The essence of that moment reached into the very core of their beings, igniting faith anew. "Prepare your hearts," he urged the crowd. "Prepare your spirits, for the miracles of the living God are about to break forth in ways you could not imagine. And remember," he whispered, his tone both tender and piercing, "it is in the dark that His light shines brightest." As the light faded and the thunder roared in the distance, Elisha could feel the stirring of destiny. What wondrous signs would soon unfold, and what burdens would weigh upon their hearts? The people, though filled with a holy reverence, were left with an urgent question lingering in the air. With the heavens echoing God's voice, they pondered, how would God's sovereign plan knit their trials with His promises for miraculous deliverance? And so, as the storm loomed closer, they stood poised on the brink of revelation, hearts racing, knowing that in every rumble of thunder, even deeper divine truths awaited them. As the thunder continued to rumble in the distance, a heavy silence enveloped the assembly, filling the space with a weight that was palpable. Elisha, sensing the tension, lifted his voice above the murmurs. "Fear not, for behold, our God is a fortress in times of trouble. As it is written in the Psalms, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." The crowd shifted, their eyes fixed upon the prophet, the light of revelation still lingering in Elisha's gaze. In the face of the storm, remember, dear ones, that the Lord dwells among His people. He walks through fires unfathomable. He calms waves unmanageable. With each word, the air thickened, charged with the expectations of what was to come. Among the many, a woman with tears streaming down her face stepped forward, her voice quivering. "What if our faith falters? What assurance can we really have in such times?" Sorrow painted her features, resonating with the fears shared by many. Elisha's countenance softened, reflecting the compassion of God. "Fear is but a shadow, my sister. In the depths of despair, remember also the stories of old, the faith of Daniel in the den of lions, the steadfastness of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Each stood firm, trusting in a God who delivers. Shall we not hold fast to that same faith?" As he spoke, a mighty gust of wind swept through the crowd, yet instead of dismay, a collective strength began to swell within them. God has not called us to fear, but to rise as mighty oaks in the storm. A man from the crowd, emboldened, shouted, "Show us, prophet, the power of our God. Let us witness these miracles you speak of." With fervor ignited in his heart, Elisha beckoned them closer, as if to shield their spirits from the winds of doubt.
Gather your hearts and let us call upon the God of miracles. Let us remember that he is not distant. As he parted the Red Sea, so shall he make a way for us. Suddenly, the thunder cracked once more, this time louder, echoing the prophet's declarations and stirring a holy zeal within the people. They raised their voices in a chorus of prayers. A mixture of supplications and praises filled the air. Then a sound akin to rushing waters enveloped them, and they turned their eyes skyward as a brilliant light broke through the darkened clouds, illuminating their gathering. "Look, the glory of the Lord is upon us," they cried, clinging to one another in awe. Elisha, radiant in that divine moment, declared with authority, "Hear me, O people, the miracles of the Lord shall be manifested in our midst. Even as he rained down manna from heaven, so shall we experience his extravagant grace." Just then, the light began to glow more intensely, and visions of healing and restoration spun through the thoughts of those present. In that sacred space, promises of deliverance and hope became tangible. But amidst the fervor, Elisha sensed a deeper stirring, a revelation yet to be uncovered. There is more beyond this moment, dear ones, for even as we see the miraculous here, it is but the precursor to something far greater. He continued, "In your trials, the Lord will reveal truths that will transform your very understanding of his ways. For the days ahead are written in the scrolls of heaven. Do not lose heart, for his plan is unfolding. Even as your faith is tested, remember, he has already declared victory over all darkness." The crowd affirmed in unison, "We trust in our God." And in that stunning instant, the true depth of God's sovereign plan began to reveal itself. A promise not just of immediate miracles, but of an enduring legacy that would resonate through generations. As Elisha spoke, the tension shifted, and a holy anticipation filled each heart. "Prepare then for what the Lord is about to do," he concluded, "for the path of righteousness leads not only to miraculous encounters, but to a profound awakening of his promises. The time has come for you to witness the unfolding of his glorious purpose." As the echoes of his words faded into the soft murmur of wind, they all felt a call unto deeper faith, stirring them toward the magnificent purposes woven into the very heart of God's plan. What awaited them in the chapters to come was a discovery of miraculous wonders, each intricately woven into the narrative of their lives. As the light of the Lord shone brightly upon them, illuminating every dark corner of doubt, the people stood transfixed, their hearts racing with anticipation. The air crackled with an electric fervor as Elisha began to sense the very winds of change swirling around their gathering. "Behold," he cried, his voice ringing with authority, "the presence of the Lord is among us, and his hand is moving with great power. In the coming days you shall witness signs as a reflection of your faith." A ripple of excitement surged through the assembly, and a great murmuring arose, words of encouragement and excitement, testimonies of past deliverance. Yet, in the midst of celebration, Elisha felt a sorrowful weight. "But, my friends," he continued, his tone shifting gravely, "with great outpouring comes great responsibility. Do not think that this is merely for your own gain. The blessings poured out are meant to be a reflection of his love, to be shared among the nations." At this, a man named Obadiah stepped forward, trembling yet compelled to speak. "Prophet, do we not walk in the shadow of fear? The enemy gathers strength, and we see the nations plotting against us. How can we be a light among the darkness when we ourselves are but flickering candles in the storm?" Elisha's gaze steadied on Obadiah, and he placed a reassuring hand upon his shoulder. "Fear not, for it is in our weakness that his strength is made manifest. Did he not say in the Scriptures, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness"? 2 Corinthians 12:9. Trust must be our anchor, even when the tempest rages. The tension in Obadiah's brow began to loosen as he absorbed the prophet's words. "Yes, my Lord, I shall place my trust in the God of Israel," he murmured, turning his gaze upwards as if to seek divine clarity. With renewed fervor, Elisha called upon the people to gather closely. "Listen, O Israel, for the Lord is calling. Great wonders are before us, yes. Yet the path leads through trials as intense as fire. Do you remember how he guided our forefathers through the wilderness, providing for their needs even in the barren desert? So shall he provide for us." As he spoke, Elisha noticed a mother cradling her child, whispering words of comfort. "Fear not, little one," he declared, "for even as he closed the mouths of the lions and brought Daniel safely through the fire, so shall he keep you, his beloved." In that moment, the very fabric of fear began to unravel, each thread replaced with boldness. The crowd began to call upon the name of the Lord in unison, declaring his faithfulness, their voices rising like incense before the throne. As the noise swirled around him, Elisha felt the stirring of prophetic insight deep within. "I see a time coming, a time when the hearts of men shall be turned back to their Maker." He paused, allowing the weight of that declaration to rest heavily upon their hearts. "And yet this shall be preceded by darkness that consumes. For even the greatest of lights must shine brightly against the backdrop of the night." A great silence fell over the assembly as they grasped the gravity of his words. Elisha, emboldened, continued, "Indeed, healing will flow like a river in the streets of our cities, but we must prepare our hearts as vessels for his mercy. It is not in lifting ourselves up that we will shine, but in humbling ourselves as his servant. Our repentance shall lead to revival." A chorus rose among them, voices lifting into the air. "We will humble ourselves, Lord. Work in us and through us." In that sacred chorus, Elisha felt the thrill of the Lord's Spirit moving. He knew that God's sovereign plan was unfolding, each heart an instrument for his glory. But the prophet also understood the depths of the trials ahead. He concluded, "So I implore you to remain steadfast, for the adversary lies in wait, seeking whom he may devour. Keep watch over your hearts, for the climax of our faith will erupt in a declaration of victory, not merely for today, but engraved into eternity." As the people united in fervent shouts of praise under the radiant light, a profound truth lingered in the air, drawing them closer to the heart of God's eternal desire. Those gathered knew deep within that by laying down their fears, they were embarking on a pilgrimage towards miracles yet unseen. What they did not know, however, was the coming test of their faith that would challenge their very understanding of divine purpose. For the tapestry of destiny was being woven intricately, and the fullness of God's sovereign plan awaited its reveal. And it came to pass that the days of trial began to unfold, and the shadows of uncertainty descended upon the land. The clouds, heavy with more than rain, whispered the turmoil of change. Elisha, steadfast in spirit, rallied the people. "The time of testing is at hand, and with it shall come their greatest revelation. For as gold is refined in the fire, so shall our faith be forged in adversity." The hearts of the gathered trembled between fear and faith. "What manner of test shall come?" asked Obadiah again, his brow furrowed with concern. "How shall we endure when the heavens seem silent and all hope wanes?" Elisha raised his voice above the rising winds. "Fear not, for the Lord shall not abandon his own. His promises echo through the ages, and they are true. The fire may burn, but it shall not consume us. The waters may rise, but they shall not sweep us away. Gather together and prepare your hearts, for in unity shall we witness the hand of God." And so they called upon the Lord day and night, pleading for mercy, their cries echoing like thunder across the heavens. Days turned into weeks, and the drought remained unbroken, testing the very foundations of their faith. Each family shared what little they had, drawing close together, and the widow found herself rallying the community, her spirit aflame with the fire of God's providence. In the midst of hunger, she would gather the children with her sons, recounting the miracles of old. In every story of lack, there was always abundant grace, she proclaimed. Do you remember how the Lord provided for Elijah and the little flour and oil? Our God is the same. He shall provide. As her words stirred hope, the weary surged with renewed vigor. Yet the nights grew longer, and the sun beat down relentlessly. It was on one particularly oppressive day when the governor sent word that all supplies were depleted. "Prepare ye the people," he declared solemnly. "Give heed to their needs, for the want shall soon be upon us like a dark cloud." Elisha listened, his heart heavy but resolute. "Do not despair, beloved. Call the faithful and gather once more. We must show our resolve in the face of adversity. For the Lord is preparing to do a new thing, a miracle greater than we can expect." As the people came together, there emerged a peculiar stillness amid their fervor, a divine expectation wrapped around their hearts like a mantle. And there, together at the altar, they sought the face of God, holding tightly to the faith ignited by their shared stories. Then a murmuring began to rise, not from the lips of man, but from the very skies above. A sudden violent wind ripped through the valley, causing voices to tremble with both fear and anticipation. The heavens beckoned, and Elisha, eyes lifted toward the storm, proclaimed, "Hold fast, children of Israel, for I sense the movement of the Almighty. The rain shall come, and his blessings shall pour forth." And indeed, as thunder rolled, the clouds split open, and the first drops of rain fell, gentle at first, but soon transformed into a torrential downpour that drenched the parched earth. The ground, that had been cracked and dry, drank deeply of the life-giving water. "Look, the Lord has heard our cries," the widow shouted in amazement, grasping her son's hands, their joy uncontained. An uproar of praise erupted as every heart lifted to the skies, worshiping the one who reigns in abundance. Yet, even amid jubilant praise, a shift began deep in their hearts. For they understood now the path of faith often led through challenges intermixed with blessings. As the rain filled their vessels and renewed the soil of the land, it became evident the tests would continue, evolving from physical sustenance to spiritual fruitfulness. Elisha, his voice carrying like thunder amidst the rain, rallied the people once more. "Beloved, you have witnessed the unfathomable majesty of our God today. But do not anchor your hearts solely in the gifts, for the greatest treasures lie in the journey itself. Hold on to faith not only in provision, but in transformation, for each trial is a call unto the depths of your soul." And thus, as the rain fell, the community forged ahead, guided not merely by desire for survival, but by a fervent quest for God's heart. They remembered the widow's testimony, the oil that had multiplied, the boy who had lived again, and the promise of things greater yet to be revealed. The days grew long as they adjusted to the rhythm of rainy seasons mixed with the sun, and with every drop that touched the thirsty land, the seeds of faith planted in the hearts of many began to grow, sprouting forth revival that would echo through generations. Elisha, now regarded not only as a prophet but as a beacon of hope, continued to speak boldly of the sovereignty of God. "Prepare ye, for the harvest is coming. It will challenge every heart as it calls forth all that you have received. Love one another, serve one another, and in doing so you reflect the abundance of our beloved Creator." Hearts began to resonate with the notion that each blessing was meant to overflow, not merely for themselves, but for those around them.
The widow led the village in acts of kindness, ensuring no neighbor was left wanting. And as blessings multiplied, so too did their faith and sense of purpose. As the town flourished, filled with a renewed legacy of hope, the shadows of trials became distant memories. They transformed from a community simply surviving to a people thriving in God's purpose, empowered for their season of miracles. And as the sun set on those golden days, casting a heavenly glow upon the land, Elisha knew that their trials had not only revealed their strength, but had woven their stories into the great tapestry of faith that stretched across the ages. He understood that in every moment of darkness, light had broken through. The heart of their God had moved in profound ways, leading his people from lack to abundance, from fear to faith. Let the story of the widow and her oil echo through eternity as a reminder of hope and transformation. For in the heart of adversity lies the promise of miracles yet to be birthed. And so they ventured forth, hearts ignited to share the good news of God's faithfulness, eager for the adventures that awaited, for the story was far from over. Now, beloved, as you reflect on this incredible journey, we invite you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, for each click carries His love further than we could imagine. Comment below your spiritual reflections. How has this biblical story impacted your faith? Your testimony can light the way for another. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Only true believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content to reach more souls for Christ.